for the adoption of this amendment. The amendment is not agreed to. There are now 10 minutes of debate prior to a vote in relation to amendment number 634, offered by the senator from Texas, Mr. Cornyn.
Mr. President.
The senator from Texas.
Mr. President, I'd like to offer a bipartisan proposition to my colleagues here in the nature of this amendment. The reason I say that this idea enjoys bipartisan support: 47 senators, Democrats and Republicans, have joined together in a letter to the administration asking that the administration grant a sale of F-16C and D models to our ally Taiwan. This amendment would compel that sale because, unfortunately, the administration has declined to make that sale yesterday, notwithstanding the fact that the Taiwan Relations Act, signed by Jimmy Carter, passed by bipartisan Congress, requires the United States to provide Taiwan with defense articles necessary to enable Taiwan to maintain sufficient self-defense capabilities. They have lost that capability, as demonstrated by this chart taken from Defense Department records. Currently, the People's Republic of China has about 2,300 operational combat aircraft at Taiwan's 490.
Senators, please, if you must talk, please take it into the cloakroom or outside. Otherwise, please give your full attention to the senator from Texas.
Taiwan, by comparison, has 490 operational aircraft, of which about 100 need to be retired. French Mirage aircraft, F-5 aircraft, about 100 of them need to be retired because they are literally obsolete. What this amendment would do would be to compel the sale of 66 F-16C and D models to our friends in Taiwan. Why is this important? Well, the Department of Defense reports that China's military power is in increasingly precarious situation for the region, and that China seeks the capability both to deter Taiwan independence and influence Taiwan to settle the dispute between them on China's terms. This amendment would compel that sale. My colleague from Massachusetts argued earlier that the retrofit for 145 of F-16A and B models, which Taiwan has, which the United States sold, is an adequate substitute. It is not. All that will do is help upgrade 145 of these aircraft that I identified earlier. It won't meet the need created by the retirement of the obsolete French Mirages and the F-5. Mr. President, I would reserve the remainder of my time.
Mr. President.
The senator from Massachusetts.
Mr. President, I think all of us agree with the intent and direction that the senator from Texas wants to go here with respect to our friendship and our support of Taiwan. In the 26 years I've been here, I've never not supported doing what's necessary to live up to the Taiwan Relations Act. But the senator is reaching way beyond what we have ever done in the United States Senate.
Can we have order?
Which is to compel a single weapon system sale by the President with respect to a complex relationship like China, Taiwan, and the entire presence of the United States in the area of the Straits and in that region. We've never done that. Moreover, the President of Taiwan has said that it is entirely adequate. He feels that they will have the defensive capacity necessary under the TRA in order to be able to defend themselves at the current level with the upgrade that we're providing. Now, let me point out, under President Bush, over 8 years, we provided $12 billion to Taiwan, over 8 years. In 3 years of the Obama administration, he has provided about $12 billion. 3 years. So it was $15 billion for Bush over 8 years, $12 billion by Obama over 3 years. And the upgrade that is being provided, $6 billion worth of upgrade sales of weapons, includes state-of-the-art avionics and weaponry, including the active electronically scanned array radars, targeting systems, AIM-9X air-to-air missiles, and precision-guided munitions. Those airplanes, those 145 F-16s, will have state-of-the-art capacity at the highest level of any F-16 that we're allowed to sell to any country in the world. Moreover, the administration has made it absolutely clear this does not preclude the sale of F-16s, maybe in the next months, maybe in the next year, but that ought to be done by any administration, Republican or Democrat, in an orderly way as a matter of good arms policy and as a matter of good foreign policy. So I'd respectfully submit to my colleagues, and in addition to that, the administration is unalterably opposed to this. So here we are working hard under a fairly careful script to get TAA out of here so we can move to 3 trade agreements that a lot of us want to move and pass, which means jobs for America. They've been long overdue. We pass this amendment, we lose that opportunity. It's that simple. So these are all trade-offs. But this is a trade-off measured against the lack of any need or urgency as a matter of defense policy and foreign policy to do this. So I say to my colleagues, why for the first time, without that showing of urgency and need, particularly given the President of Taiwan's own statements, are we going to, for the first time, compel a president to do something that he doesn't think he wants to do in the context of the relationship both with China and Taiwan? I reserve the balance of my time.
Mr. President, how much time do I have remaining?
2 minutes and 30 seconds.
Mr. President, as our colleagues know, under Article 1, Section 8 of the United States Constitution, Congress is given the power to regulate commerce with foreign nations. That's why this amendment is relevant to this trade bill that we're getting ready to pass, because it's important that products manufactured in the United States, produce grown here, that we sell it to markets abroad, because it creates jobs here at home, in addition to fulfilling our legal obligation under the Taiwan Relations Act. And I must say I disagree with my colleague from Massachusetts. The upgrade on 145 aircraft does nothing to substitute for the retiring of the French Mirage aircraft and the F-5s, given the huge disparity in air power between the People's Republic of China and Taiwan. And because we're all concerned about jobs, let me just remind my colleagues that 30 different states will receive benefits by way of jobs as a result of these sales. This isn't the primary reason why this is important. This is about American prestige, keeping our promises, and not letting the bullies of the world, including China, intimidate the United States of America from keeping our solemn commitments to our allies. I ask colleagues to vote yes on the Cornyn Amendment, and I'd ask for the yeas and nays.
Well, Mr. President, I have time.
Senator from...
How much time do I have?
Is there a sufficient second? Yes, there is.
Mr. President, how much time do I have?
The senator has 1 minute and 24 seconds.
Well, Mr. President, I won't use all of it. Let me just say very, very quickly. The sale of weapons measured against the policy decisions in a relationship, a set of relationships that are critical to a balance of power and to threat and to danger and so forth, has never been translated into a jobs program. And if you want it to be $6 billion spent on these upgrades, Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, a host of companies are going to benefit from that $6 billion and may benefit from the sale of weapons down the road. This is a policy issue. And the policy question is whether or not the President of Taiwan can speak for Taiwan or the Senator of Texas speaks for Taiwan. The policy issue is whether or not we are going to be adequately meeting the needs of the TRA and meeting the foreign policy priorities of an administration that, it seems to me, given the statements of the President of Taiwan, do not violate, not only don't violate it, but sustain the relationship of the TRA. I've proudly voted for Taiwan and in support of Taiwan every year I've been here for 26 years. I believe I'm voting for them today, even as I oppose this amendment, but support the administration's $6 billion program for upgrade. those 145 F-16s, and maybe we'll sell them some others.
Senator's time has elapsed.
Mr. President,
Senator from Texas.
just briefly, I'll conclude. Once this production line is shut down for the production of these F-16s, it cannot easily be reconstituted. The 2,300 people who are currently working in the F-16 line will be reassigned or fired. And so this is important. This isn't something we can take up just willy-nilly later on because we've finally gotten around to it. It is timely. It needs to be done now to keep our commitments to our allies and show the Chinese what they really need to see from America, and that is strength, not weakness. I yield back.
The yeas and nays have been ordered. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka. Mr. Alexander. Ms. Ayotte. Mr. Barrasso. Mr. Baucus. Mr. Bekich.
No.
Mr. Bennett. Mr. Bingaman. Mr. Blumenthal. Mr. Blunt. Mr. Bozeman. Mrs. Boxer. Mr. Brown in Massachusetts. Mr. Brown of Ohio. Mr. Burr. Ms. Cantwell. Mr. Cardin. Mr. Carper. Mr. Casey. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Coates, Mr. Coburn, Mr. Cochran, Ms. Collins, Mr. Conrad, Mr. Coons, Mr. Corker, Mr. Cornyn, Mr. Crapo, Mr. Dement, Mr. Durbin, Mr. Enzi, Mrs. Feinstein, Mr. Franken,
That'd be a no.
Mrs. Gillibrand, Mr. Graham, Mr. Grassley, Mrs. Hagan, Mr. Harkin, Mr. Hatch, Mr. Heller, Mr. Hoven, Mrs. Hutchison, Mr. Inhofe, Mr. Inouye, Mr. Isaacson, Mr. Johans, Mr. Johnson of Wisconsin, Mr. Johnson of South Dakota, Mr. Carey, Mr. Kirk, Ms. Klobuchar, Mr. Cole, Mr. Kyle, Ms. Landrieu, Mr. Lautenberg, Mr. Leahy, Mr. Lee, Mr. Levin, Mr. Lieberman, Mr. Lugar, Mr. Manchin, Mr. McCain, Mrs. McCaskill, Mr. McConnell, Mr. Menendez, Mr. Merkley, Ms. Mikulski, Mr. Moran, Ms. Murkowski, Mrs. Murray, Mr. Nelson of Nebraska, Mr. Nelson of Florida, Mr. Paul, Mr. Portman, Mr. Pryor, Mr. Reed of Rhode Island, Mr. Reed of Nevada, Mr. Risch, Mr. Roberts, Mr. Rockefeller, Mr. Rubio, Mr. Sanders, Mr. Schumer, Mr. Sessions, Mrs. Shaheen, Mr. Shelby, Ms. Snow, Ms. Stabenow, Mr. Tester, Mr. Thune, Mr. Toomey, Mr. Udall, Colorado, Mr. Udall of New Mexico, Mr. Vitter, Mr. Warner, Mr. Webb, Mr. Whitehouse, Mr. Wicker, Mr. Wyden, Mr. Bennett, Ms. Stabenow, Senators voting in the affirmative: Alexander, Ayotte, Blumenthal, Bozeman, Brown in Massachusetts, Burr, Chambliss, Coates, Coburn, Collins, Cornyn, DeMint, Graham, Grassley, Hatch, Heller, Hoeven, Hutchison, Inhofe, Isaacson, Johans, Kirk, Kyle, Lee, Lugar, Manchin, McCain, Menendez, Moran, Murkowski, Nelson of Florida, Rubio, Sessions, Shelby, Thune, Toomey, Vitter, and Wicker. Mr. Crapo? Aye. Mr. Harkin? Mr. Risch? Aye. Swift? Senators voting in the negative: Akaka, Baucus, Beckich, Bennett, Bingaman, Boxer, Cantwell, Cardin, Casey, Conrad, Durbin, Feinstein, Franken, Gillibrand, Hagan, Harkin, Inouye, Johnson of South Dakota, Kerry, Klobuchar, Cole, Lautenberg, Leahy, Levin, McCaskill, Merkley, Mikulski, Murray, Nelson of Nebraska, Pryor, Reed of Rhode Island, Reed of Nevada, Rockefeller, Sanders, Schumer, Shaheen, Stabenow, Tester, Udall of Colorado, Udall of New Mexico, Webb, and Wyden. Mr. Carper, no. Ms. Johnson? Mr. Johnson, Wisconsin, aye. Mr. Brown of Ohio, no. Mr. Roberts, aye. Ms. Snow? Ms. Snow, aye. Mr. Portman? Mr. Portman, aye. Mr. Cochran? Mr. Cochran, aye. Ms. Landrieu? Ms. Landrieu, no. No. Mr. Lieberman, aye. Mr. Blunt, aye. Mr. McConnell, aye. Mr. Whitehouse, no. Mr. Coons, no. Mr. Warner, no.
Are there any senators wishing to vote or to change his or her vote? There being none on this vote, the yeas are 48, the nays are 48. Under the previous order requiring 60 votes for the adoption of this amendment, the amendment is not agreed to. There are now 2 minutes of debate equally divided in relation to Amendment number 633, offered by the senator from Nevada, Mr. Reed, on behalf of Mr. Casey.
Mr. President.
Order, please, Mr. Casey. The senator from Pennsylvania.
Mr. President, I'd ask an affirmative vote on this amendment. Basically, what we're talking about here.
Please, order, and if you have a conversation that you really need to make, do it in the cloakroom or outside. Otherwise, please give your attention to the senator from Pennsylvania.
Mr. President, trade adjustment assistance is very simple. We've got a job crisis in the country. This program for decades now has helped people get through that crisis and, very importantly, has allowed them to be trained and retrained for the jobs of the future. We need this program, our workers need it, and our economy needs it. I want to commend the work of Chairman Baucus and my colleague from Ohio, Senator Brown. I ask for an affirmative vote on this, my colleague from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thanks to Senator Baucus and Senator Casey for their leadership on this. This is about helping people who have lost their jobs, not only through no fault of their own, but because of actions taken in this body, in the House of Representatives, on trade agreements and on trade policy. I met a woman in Youngstown the other day, lost her job in manufacturing, and she went back to school. She and her daughter are both now in nursing school, training to be nurses. That's what TAA is about. Vote for the Casey-Baucus-Brown amendment.
Okay.
Serious, man.
Mr. President.
Who yields time? The senator from Utah.
Mr. President, this is a costly program of dubious value. In our hearings, the representatives of the administration couldn't come up with one job that would be lost as a result of these 3 trade agreements. There's no evidence that TAA really works, and in all honesty, there's no commitment from the President. We're going to have the 3 trade agreements come up anyway. And I just have to say that even though we haven't done a trade agreement in years, TAA continues to grow, and TAA is on top of unemployment insurance that we're paying anyway, and it just isn't justified. All I can say is that literally this program should not be adopted at this particular point. And if it is adopted, it ought to be adopted based upon reason and so forth.
The question occurs on amendment number 633. Is there a sufficient second? There appears to be. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka. Mr. Alexander. Ms. Ayotte. Mr. Barrasso. Mr. Baucus. Mr. Begich. Mr. Bennett. Mr. Bingaman. Mr. Blumenthal. Mr. Blunt. Mr. Bozeman. No. Mrs. Boxer. Mr. Brown of Massachusetts. Mr. Brown of Ohio. Mr. Burr. Ms. Cantwell. Mr. Cardin. Mr. Carper. Mr. Casey. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Coates, Mr. Coburn, Mr. Cochran, Ms. Collins, Mr. Conrad, Mr. Coons, Mr. Corker, Mr. Cornyn, Mr. Crapo, Mr. DeMint, Mr. Durbin, Mr. Enzi, Mrs. Feinstein, Mr. Franken, Mrs. Gillibrand, Mr. Graham, Mr. Grassley, Mrs. Hagan, Mr. Harkin, Mr. Hatch, Mr. Heller, Mr. Hoven,
Now you know all the ins and outs of it? I'm sorry.
Mrs. Hutchison, Mr. Inhofe, Mr. Inouye, Mr. Isaacson, Mr. Johans, Mr. Johnson of Wisconsin, Mr. Johnson of South Dakota.
Thank you.
Mr. Kerry, Mr. Kirk, Ms. Klobuchar, Mr. Cole, Mr. Kyle, Ms. Landrieu, Mr. Lautenberg, Mr. Leahy, Mr. Lee. Mr. Levin.
I only had to tell him one time. Mr. Blunt should remember that.
Mr. Lieberman.
He's a legislative part. There's no such thing as final. Exactly. Did you have intermediate though?
Maybe faster. Could be faster. You got a second?
Mr. Lugar. Mr. Manchin. Mr. McCain. Mrs. McCaskill. Mr. McConnell. Mr. Menendez. Mr. Merkley. Ms. Mikulski. Mr. Moran. Ms. Murkowski. Nebraska. Mr. Nelson of Florida. Mr. Paul. Mr. Portman. Mr. Pryor. Mr. Reed of Rhode Island. Mr. Reed of Nevada. Mr. Risch. Mr. Roberts. Mr. Rockefeller. Mr. Rubio. Mr. Sanders, Mr. Schumer, Mr. Sessions, Mrs. Shaheen, Mr. Shelby, Ms. Snow, Ms. Stabenow, Mr. Chester, Mr. Thune, Mr. Toomey, Mr. Udall of Colorado, Mr. Udall of New Mexico, Mr. Vitter, Mr. Warner, Mr. Webb, Mr. Whitehouse, Mr. Wicker, Mr. Wyden, Senators voting in the affirmative: Akaka, Baucus, Begich, Bennett, Bingaman, Blumenthal, Blunt, Bozeman, Boxer, Brown of Massachusetts, Brown of Ohio, Cantwell, Cardin, Carper, Casey, Coates, Cochran, Collins, Conrad, Coons, Feinstein, Franken, Gillibrand, Hagan, Harkin, Hoven, Inouye, Isaacson, Johans, Johnson of South Dakota, Kerry, Cole, Landrieu, Lautenberg, Levin, Manchin, Menendez, Merkley, Mikulski, Moran, Murray, Nelson of Nebraska, Nelson of Florida, Portman, Pryor, Reed of Rhode Island, Rockefeller, Sanders, Shaheen, Shelby, Tester, Udall of Colorado, Udall of New Mexico, Warner, Wicker, Wyden. Mr. Leahy, aye. Ms. Klobuchar, aye. Mr. Whitehouse, aye. Mr. Durbin, aye. Mr. Heller, aye. Mr. Webb, aye. Senators voting in the negative: Alexander, Ayotte, Burr, Cornyn, DeMint, Graham, Hatch, Hutchison, Johnson of Wisconsin, Kirk, Kyle, Lee, Lugar, McConnell, Roberts, Rubio, Sessions, Thune, Toomey, Vitter. Mr. Reed of Nevada, aye. Mr. Inhofe, no. Mr. Paul, no. Mr. Coburn, no. Ms. Snow, aye. Mr. Chambliss, no. Mr. Grassley, no. Ms. Stabenow, aye. Mr. Schumer, aye. Mr. Risch, no. Mr. Crapo, no. Mr. McCain, no. Mrs. McCaskill, aye. Ms. Murkowski, aye. Mr. Lieberman. Mr. Lieberman, aye.
The Senate will be in order. On this vote, the yeas are 69, the nays are 28. Under the previous order requiring 60 votes for the adoption of this amendment, the amendment is agreed to. Under the previous order, the clerk will read the bill for a third time. Calendar number 166, H.R. 2832, an act to extend the generalized system of preferences and for other purposes. The senator from Montana. There are now 10 minutes of debate equally divided prior to a vote on passage of the measure. The senator from Montana.
Madam President, Senate's not in order.
The Senate will be in order.
Madam President, this bill addresses our country's most urgent priority, jobs. It helps American workers acquire the skills they need to compete and win in the global economy. It gives American businesses better access to the materials they need to make world-class products. And that's just the beginning. It also opens the door to an ambitious trade agenda, an agenda that will increase U.S. exports, grow our economy, and create jobs. That agenda includes our pending free trade agreements with Colombia, Panama, and South Korea. But the first step is to renew trade adjustment assistance. Trade adjustment assistance has been an essential part of U.S. trade policy for nearly 50 years. When we negotiate trade agreements, we create new economic opportunity and spur growth. We also increase competition. TAA helps American workers and businesses meet that competition with job training, income support, health coverage, and technical assistance. Over the years, we have reformed TAA to keep pace with the changing global economy. In 2009, we extended TAA to cover service industry workers and workers whose jobs shifted overseas to any country, and we increased funding for job training and health care. But the 2009 reforms expired last February. Congress has never approved one free trade agreement, much less 3, with TAA expired. This year must be no exception. This legislation will restore the 2009 TAA reforms with responsible program cuts to achieve necessary cost savings. And this legislation will clear the path to consider and approve our free trade agreements with Colombia, Panama, and South Korea. If we do not approve this legislation, we will impose a roadblock that could derail our 3 free trade agreements. We cannot afford to fail. Weak consumer demand at home threatens to stall a recovery. We need these agreements to increase sales of American farm products, manufactured goods, and services abroad. The International Trade Commission estimates that these agreements will boost U.S. exports by $13 billion. Most importantly, these additional exports will increase economic growth and support tens of thousands of American jobs. We cannot delay. This summer, for example, trade agreements between the European Union and Korea, between Canada and Colombia entered into force. U.S. exporters are losing sales to the European and Canadian competitors. American jobs are at risk. So let us restore trade adjustment assistance for American workers. Let's expand trade preferences for the benefit of American manufacturers, and let us move quickly to consider and approve our pending free trade agreements with Colombia, Panama, and South Korea. I urge my colleagues to support this legislation.
The Senator from Utah.
Madam President, I rise in opposition to this bill before us that extends the generalized system of preferences program for 2 years as amended, and as amended, expands the Trade Adjustment Assistance program. I want to be clear. I support the underlying bill passed by the House that extends the GSP program. GSP helps American companies compete in the global marketplace while helping developing countries grow their economies and achieve sustainable economic growth to lift their people out of poverty. But as I've made clear over the past few days, I have serious concerns with expanding the Trade Adjustment Assistance Program as it has been amended by this bill. We can no longer afford to increase domestic spending on programs that have dubious value and unproven results. But that's what this bill will do. I cannot condone this spending, so I'm going to vote no. I offered an amendment that would have ended the mystery surrounding the sequencing of TAA and the 3 pending free trade agreements that has been the subject of much intrigue and speculation. My amendment would have held off the expansion of TAA until our free trade agreements with Colombia, Panama, and South Korea were enacted. Everything would move together. Isn't that what this whole bargain is supposed to be about? Well, that amendment did not pass, and the White House still refuses to say when they will send up the FTAs for a vote. Now, that doesn't seem right or fair to me. TAA is an unproven, costly, and counterproductive program. So I urge my colleagues to also oppose this bill, but should it pass, I hope the President finally matches actions with words and sends the FTAs up for a vote. I am convinced all 3 will receive strong bipartisan votes. American businesses, farmers and workers, and our friends and allies in Colombia, Panama, and South Korea cannot afford any delay.
Madam President.
The Republican leader.
Is the time expired?
3 minutes remain.
That's fine. After today's vote, the White House has no more excuses. The time has come to send the 3 pending trade agreements to Congress. We waited for the chance to pass these trade agreements that our economy desperately needs, and that even the White House admits will create tens of thousands of jobs. Now, the White House asked us for a path forward on trade adjustment assistance in exchange for sending these deals up to Congress, and we gave it to them. I can't say I'm happy about that. This is a program that I and many Republican members have very serious questions about. But thanks to the leadership of two of our members, Senator Blunt and Portman, we're where we are today. The Senate will soon pass TAA without amendment. Both parties in the Senate have acted in good faith to move this process forward. Now it's the President's turn. No more moving the goalposts. No more excuses. It's time for the administration to demonstrate something that seems to be in short supply on the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue, and that's trust. The Senate today will have acted on trust in passing TAA even before we've received the agreements. But the White House has refused to show the same trust in congressional Republicans who've assured them that TAA will move along with the free trade agreements. I kept my promise that I would allow TAA to move forward in the Senate as long as Republicans had a chance to amend it. It is time for the administration to deliver theirs. It's time for the President to send up these long-pending free trade agreements without further delay. I yield the floor.
Madam President,
The Majority Leader.
for the benefit of the senators, so we can look at the schedule a little bit this evening. First of all, I appreciate the support for this trade adjustment assistance from my Republican colleagues. That's an important piece of legislation. I'm glad we were able to complete it, this, at least in the Senate. As I've said many, many times, we have to make sure that the House also passes this. I have been told by the Speaker and others in the Republican leadership in the House that they will do that. And I'm hopeful and confident they will. Once that's done, and they have ways of making sure that through a rule that they could issue, that it wouldn't be sent to the President. Now, you don't have to enroll it until the trade bills pass. But once the trade bills passed, of course, they would send that trade adjustment assistance to the White House. So the first step of this agreement, I don't need to tell everyone here, I've spoken to the Republican leader many times, I don't support any of those trade agreements, but I'm going to live up to what I said I would do and do what I can to move those through the Senate as quickly as possible so that there are fair votes on all of them. But we're waiting for the House to take action also. So finally, without belaboring the point on trade adjustment assistance, I repeat what I said earlier. I appreciate very much the support of the Republicans in getting us the votes necessary to pass this. It was a nice vote, and I appreciate it very much. As far as the rest of the evening, I just talked with the House Democratic leadership, some of them, and right now the Republicans are still trying to get enough votes to pass something over there. Right now they haven't been able to do that, so they haven't even asked for the rule to be issued. So we're waiting to see what they do. Some of the reports out of the House are really troubling, to say the least. One of the latest proposals we've heard, remember one reason this went so bad is that 53 House Republicans wrote a letter to the Republican leadership in the House and said, unless you cut back the CR, that, you remember that's the agreement we worked on for 3 months to get an agreement, so we took care of the 301As and Bs for the rest of the year. They said, unless you cut that by $28 billion, we're not going to vote for it. $28 billion. The latest we've heard from the House, in an effort to satisfy the $28 billion that the 53 Republicans want, they've said they're going to cut renewable energy projects by another $110 million. So if that goes through, then the 53 Republicans, instead of settling for $28 billion, are going to settle for $110 million. From Las Vegas, those aren't very good odds in a card game. I hope that we do something that is fair and realistic. I hope they send us a CR. I hope they send us a reasonably important number on FEMA. We know what's needed. The Secretary of Homeland Security was in Joplin, Missouri today, looking at the devastation there and the work that has stopped in that town that was struck by winds of 300 miles an hour. So, Madam President, we're here. I have to say we're going to have a caucus in just a few minutes, in 20 minutes. But I I can't see us doing anything tonight. I mean, I don't, last I heard from, yes,
On that point?
sure.